Hey folks, it's Brandon Schaefer here with another lesson video, and in this video I'm going to talk about this small little painting here I did of oranges on a tree. There's the palette of colors that I used, very limited, with a few brushes there. Nothing too specific, just some filberts. So now that we got past that point, the beginning here, this is a 6x8 canvas panel, and what I normally do is how I start out my composition is I plan it out usually by drawing it first in the sketch pad, or sometimes I do like I'm doing here and I take some ultramarine with some white and I just plan it out, just sketch it in, simplified lines and shapes to show the forms and really work on the composition and the aspect of that, and see if it'll work on the panel. So be sure to keep the rule of thirds in mind. So this painting is very simple. And now the next part, what I do here is I take note of the saturated tones and the neutral tones. And basically what I start doing is just blocking in the canvas, the whole entire painting. I want to get rid of the white of the canvas, but I want to make all the colors that I'm putting down as realistic, as possible. Not realistic, but as correct as possible to what I want to achieve. So I'll take note of the neutrals. With this particular painting, I was using a stock photo reference. Sometimes I like to paint on location, it just depends. So whatever your reference is, just take note of the neutrals and take note of the highly saturated colors and really just try to block those in. So here in the next phase is just more blocking in of different tones and blending them together, and you'll see that the paint is not very thick. It's a very thin coverage, which is fine in this first stage. This is kind of just the initial stage of planning almost. You do want to get the colors as correctly as possible. But since this first stage is not the final stage, you're kind of just planning out the color scheme, etc., and seeing how the tones work. And then in the next phase here shortly, you'll see where I correct, if need be, you correct the tones or colors, etc. And really you're just getting rid of that white, like I said. So that's what you do here, and try to take note of value, but mostly focus on color, where you want the eye to be drawn to, etc. So there you go, I got it all blocked in, and now I'm just using my small filbert brush there, or actually the larger brush that I use for a small panel painting like this, a 6x8, and I'm just putting in some of the highlights and trying to get the light tones down. And after I get some of the highlights on, I just go and add in the darks, which you'll see here in a second. But really you just kind of scrub these on. Try to get a thick coverage for the second layer. Not too thick, but you'll see when you put down the same amount of paint again that it gets a nice coverage, and there's no none of the canvas is showing through. There's it's a nice even coverage. And don't be afraid to let some of that texture show through in the final painting, maybe around the corners or something. It's really a nice effect. But definitely where the focus is, and that's actually what I'm painting right now, is kind of the focal area. And you'll see that I focus more on that area throughout the entire painting, because that's where I want the viewer to look. Just be sure to have a nice even and thick kind of coverage for the focal point. Add the detail where it's necessary and where people are going to be looking. So for the shadow tones there, I'm just using a little bit of a red mixture, but definitely neutralized. And I'm just blending it, scumbling together, and to blend, both colors have to be a little bit wet. Either that, or you can do the dry blending and just scumble it on, scrub it in. That's kind of what I do sometimes. It's a mixture of both. You just have to find a balance and play around with it, and just lightly put it on. It's it has a lot to do with control of the brush and the pressure you use with the brush, and how much paint you put on it, how much water you use, etc. And these are personal things. It's hard for me to really show you how to do these things. You have to learn by doing many paintings. You know, it just comes in time. So here I'm adding in some of the darks because most of the painting around the oranges is it's still in that first layer, that first initial stage of blocking in. So here I'm adding in the darks where it needs to be, some of the shadows, and really bumping up the contrast for this painting to really make those oranges just stand out and glow. And that's what really makes it look realistic, is having that contrast with the bright orange there, and then right next to the bright orange is these dark leaves. So I fixed up most of the background there, and now I'm adding in some detailed and touches, you know, some middle tones and highlights to the leaves around them, because I think the oranges are pretty much done. You know, I think they have a really nice look to them, and it just takes time mixing all these different tones, highlights, midtones, and shadows to get this nice balance and create a realistic image. And now just adding in the details just pushes it to the next level. Some nice green tones there. They kind of offset the red shadows there, so you have a you know, for the color scheme, it's a complementary color scheme, and you'll see here shortly with some highlights or some reflected sort of shadow tones for the leaves. I make some of the highlights a little more blue, and blue and orange are complementary colors, so it's a nice color scheme, really balanced. And this is a simple, very simple painting. It just takes some time and detail, and just, you know, in the initial stages you just block in, not worrying about details, and use a larger brush. And then when you get to this stage of the painting, you want to use a smaller brush and stay somewhat attentive to detail, because that's where the life comes from this painting. So I hope this is making sense so far. I hope you guys are enjoying this video. So here I'm just kind of, you know, going back and forth between darks, lights, adding in the shadows back in where it needs to, if you add too much highlight. And sometimes it's good to do that, to go from a highlight straight into a shadow so that you can blend them together and get a nice smooth edge instead of a harsh edge. And here's what really puts it over the top, is paying attention to detail and light. You can see the leaf there hitting the orange, and it just gives this nice shadow right across the orange. And I was really afraid to do that because the orange is so nice, but you know, sometimes you have to take a leap of faith and take a risk to push it over the edge and make it a nice painting. You know, just take a risk. So here I'm adding some extra little highlights on there, pushing it over. And don't be afraid to use your finger if you feel your pressure was too great or there was too much paint on the brush. You know, just wipe it off and knock it down a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. Every great artist uses their finger. It's the natural set of brushes, you know. And here's what I was talking about earlier, giving the leaves like a blue highlighted tone. So this is more of a blue-green, and it really goes nice with the red and green, and then the yellow, or excuse me, the orange and blue. So a nice complementary color scheme overall here. Very balanced and very simple with the composition. You know, that focal point of the oranges right on the rule of thirds there, in the top right and bottom right. And also pay attention to the tones here, that there's not much saturation. I mean, the oranges are highly saturated, but other than that, everything is very neutral, and that's what makes the oranges just pop out. You know, all these tones, if you saw my palette at the beginning, I only used red, yellow, and 2 blues, and it gets this nice image like that. So there's the finished painting there. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Get a close-up on that. And you can see some of it is still unfinished a little bit, but see that focal point is just really, really nice. So I hope this helps you guys from your paintings and the process. So anyway, if you'd like to see more, just comment down below, like and subscribe. See ya.